Abe.
Hey, good morning, Matt.
Just a nice little Friday. It's a little gloomy here, but it's supposed to rain this weekend, right?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like we haven't done this in a long time. I feel like it's
Yeah,
been a
well,
while.
we've been traveling, yeah.
And it's
So
been busy. It's been really busy.
sure. Yeah. So speaking of which, one of the travels was to Las Vegas, right? So um,
Yeah.
our cultural connects with Circa, and one that we were apprehensive about, being that the city can do its damage to you if you're not careful. But I think we came out. I think it went really well. I think the whole trip went really well. I think we were able to get some of the Vegas flavor, but definitely saw some great communities and just had a great time with the people. So yeah,
Absolutely. It was
yeah,
fun. It was definitely a Vegas trip, let's say that. And
yeah,
we're alive, so it's good. But tons of fun. Thanks to all those who came out and participated with us on that. There was about 12 of us, I feel like, that went, 12 or 13 of us
right,
that went, and really, really good time. And if you don't know what we do on these trips, we get a group of agents together, we go out there, we property tour, we talk to local agents, we talk to local natives. And so I think both, our first night and our second night we were there, we had people who had just migrated from California to Nevada.
right.
And we just had a happy hour, we had dinner, and got to ask questions and just get to know them and why they made the move. And then during the day, we looked at properties from, gosh, I think the more affordable one we saw was close to $1 million.
Right.
And that the most expensive one was up to 10 million. Um, and there was, of course, properties cheaper than that, but we decided to look at those to get an idea of Summerlin and Henderson and what those neighborhoods were about. Because we've been hearing that a lot of people have been gravitating towards those neighborhoods for a while now, and
Right.
especially maybe even during the pandemic, seeing an uptick of people moving that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, the one benefit in Nevada, similar to Texas, where we also went last year to Austin, but is that personal income tax, right? The state tax, and that definitely draws a lot of people there. On top of just the other affordability and lifestyle differences, right, that it offers. But yeah, I feel like that's definitely one of the temptations, right? Is to get to Nevada. It's close enough to California to where you can visit friends, family pretty easily, right? Um, but yeah, I think the takeaway I had was, what I really wanted to go, like every time we go, is just what would my life look like here, and what are the benefits of leaving, your networks, your friends, your family, or the people around you that are your support systems, and just your daily life and that you're used to, and again, that California centricness of there's no better place on earth that a lot of us have, so testing that thesis, right, every time we go to a new city, is there something out there that needs it. And again, to those that don't live in California, we don't really believe that, but it's just the way it's just who we are, right? We feel that this is, no better place here, and for some people that's kind of growing a little bit questionable, right? But I think I'm still in that camp, not in an arrogant way, but just more in like, hey, this is where I'm used to living. This is where I like to live. So, but
Right, right. Um, the feeling I got too, I think a lot of people that went on the trip, was the homes that we saw. Um, how do I say this? So I think when you think about moving out of state into an area where the median price is much lower than what you're used to, you're thinking, hey, if I take my dollars there, I'll get more home. And so I think probably, again, the landing spots being Henderson and Summerlin, the homes we saw at even $1 million didn't feel like there was a huge, like big, like difference. You didn't all of a sudden get like a 3,000 square foot home at $1 million, where maybe here in Orange County you get something like, I don't know, 2,000 square feet or less actually right now.
right,
In places like Fullerton, and maybe way less in places like Irvine, right? But it didn't have that feeling of like, oh, like this is like so much more space and whatnot. The house we saw was $1 million, was great. It was a 3-level home, roughly what, 2,700 square feet or so.
Yeah.
with a nice pool in the back. But it was a part of a tract that was still getting built out, and the neighborhood wasn't yet like settled, it felt like, or mature yet.
Yeah, it didn't have
Um,
like the mature kind of greenery, the trees, right? It's still a little bit barren, a little bit. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. And then it feels like, I think I heard something like, I don't know, in Summerlin and areas southwest of the strip, there's still like 10,000 plus homes being built as we speak. And so
Right.
it looks like, though, all the numbers say that the people are headed that way, and for good reason. You know, Henderson, Summerlin both had really great things. You know, I love golf, and they had great golf, amenities in those areas, and the homes built around them were beautiful, right? Tons of views.
Yeah.
And then the schools were reasonably good. I know Nevada as a whole doesn't rank that well, against the nation in terms of like education, but Summerlin, Henderson both had schools 10 out of 10, in the greatest schools rankings.
Yeah.
And for that reason, a lot of families and people moving out of state are headed there, right? So
Yeah.
really nice. And we wanted to show that. We wanted to show
Yeah.
what the median price there looks like. Um, so, yeah. Well, this is the migration pattern
Yeah,
slide, right?
migration. So the
So,
median here.
yeah. So what does that say?
That'd be,
518K-ish,
yeah.
right? Which is really good. What can you buy here at 518K? That's a single family. It's going to be pretty small, right?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
so it's a good number. And then maybe the next slide with the migration pattern.
Oh, migration pattern. Sorry. Let's get there. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. So, the most people moving into that area are from the Los Angeles, Orange County area. And
Right.
it's over 6,400 from the beginning of the year till March.
Yeah.
So it's significant. And then San Francisco next, Seattle next, right? So if
Yeah.
we go back to that Irvine slide, we show the median price. And I know Irvine is not indicative of all of Orange County,
Right.
but the single family home median price being a little over $2 million in Irvine right now,
Yeah.
versus again like fives, right? Pretty good value to have, right? Um, so $2 million. I didn't even realize that it reached that high. I think Fullerton right now is still in like the high, like mid nines, I think, for a single family on
Right.
average. But Irvine, a little over 2 million, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can show the migration patterns for people coming in to Irvine. It's generally from, it looks like SF,
Yeah. Yeah. Bay Area.
you
Yeah.
know, the Bay Area, which I love. I've spent time living up there and
Yeah.
love it. But I've heard people now refer to it as Gotham City, and where unfortunately crime is kind of a little bit more of a norm, break-ins and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then what does that say next? It's New York
New
City.
York, New
Then
York City, then Seattle. Yeah.
right. And
But
then
definitely,
like
definitely
fun,
some of the bigger cities in their states, right? So you think about, yeah, definitely big city, to
yeah.
Irvine for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, God bless the four people from Wheeling, West Virginia, who have come over to Orange County. And then it's so there's people leaving though, Orange County or Irvine,
Right.
let's say, and some of them are going to San Diego. Again, a lot of them are going to Vegas, Phoenix, Bakersfield, Nashville, Tennessee, Dallas, Houston. Those are all kind of not a surprise really, and what we've been hearing, overall. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. San Diego, which is also, I think, a great city. You can see how many people are moving down there. That's a pretty big number. Um,
right.
and I talked to a lot of people that actually every time they go to San Diego, they think, why don't we move here? It's got its charm. It's got some great areas, and definitely, and you don't lose that SoCal feel for sure.
Yeah.
So it makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
Arguably a little bit better weather, even though Orange County, slightly better, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because if you think of like the three big metro areas of California, if you did split them up this way, like you think about like the Los Angeles, Orange County area here, you think about the Bay Area, and you think of San Diego, right? Those kind of the three big separate metro areas. And you think you go to the Bay Area, you lose the weather. It's not the same sort of weather of California, right? So definitely if you want to keep the weather, if you want to, and you want to move metros, then San Diego's probably makes sense, that you keep that weather and the beaches and the same type of lifestyle. So yeah, so I guess overall Las Vegas, I think for me, I feel like the tax benefits are there. We know that, and the proximity, the fact that it's few hour drive, even shorter, 45-minute plane trip, back to here. I think definitely the benefits, and I think that I think I still need to be convinced of the neighborhoods and homes that I feel like I would go, yeah, I can fit in here. I could feel at home here. I got to still a little bit more convinced of that for myself. I don't know about you, but
Yeah, I mean, I know myself, and I know Vegas is an awesome place for me, but
right.
I'd be worried a little bit more for myself if I'd moved to Vegas. But we did see investment opportunity too, and I know we talked to several realtors that felt like if you bought a 4 to 5 bedroom home with a pool, that there was a lot of short-term rental, potential, in properties like that. And then we saw those
There's towers.
high-rise,
Yeah.
yeah, condotel type condo units. If you're not familiar with what those are, it's basically it's a condo unit in a building that's managed, and they manage it like a hotel. So if you're not there, you can let the building management know that you like to lease it out, for nights at a time, and they handle that entire operation for you, and almost treat it then at that point like a hotel unit.
Yeah.
And so we saw some amazing ones that were cash flowing pretty well, and the price points weren't crazy, right? It was like I think one of them was like 500,000. A
Yeah.
nicely appointed one was 650,000, and then we saw one that was $4 million that apparently was cash flowing really well, and that was like kind of
Yeah.
that big suite with a wraparound terrace,
Yeah. That was raised
crazy
almost like a
views.
half a floor, right? Because it was a wrap around both sides, and yeah, it was penthouse. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's crazy, kind of a crazy coincidence is someone we knew from here in California was in escrow on that
Right.
$650,000 unit,
Yeah. Yeah.
in Palms Place. And so it's kind of a small world. And that person's actually joining Circa, right? So
That's right. Yeah. So
super
yeah.
super small world.
Small world for sure. Yeah, and I think that was my takeaway too, is that those having something in a high rise like that, I could see that as an investment, because I think, for myself, like I could see myself, going, hey, yeah, rent this out, short-term rental, and then occasionally staying there and having your own place, maybe later on. But I didn't mind those. I think that seemed to me more maybe quintessential for Las Vegas for me. Like rather than living in the suburbs of Las Vegas, actually having a place on the strip or just off the strip, maybe that would be something that would um, of course, usually you go to Las Vegas, you don't have to pay for rooms. So if
That's right.
if you spend a little time at the tables, you don't have to pay. So yeah, so it's I'm kind of mixed about it, but I can tell you, I definitely see the appeal for some people though, as far as like the median price at the 500 in Henderson. Henderson seems like it has a lot of great amenities there, and spots to live family life, and I've been to the sports complexes there myself with my kids when they play soccer. So definitely see that community feel there, and Summerlin, we see that emerging as well, right? But for my investment, I would say that might be what I would go, maybe try to find a nice high rise somewhere.
Yeah. Matt, out of all the 3 cities we've been to now, Austin, Nashville, Tennessee, and Vegas, like where could you see yourself potentially, feeling like,
Yeah.
hey, this is a better fit for me?
I asked myself that. I think Austin. I think Austin would be, just based on my tastes and my lifestyle. I think Austin would probably offer the best alternative to California for me, like from what we've been to for sure. Um, I felt like if it's a lot of there's some really nice mature communities that seem like they had some style to them, and some nice homes. And then you've got, like, you want to go into a city, you've got a little bit of a city there with some culture and some cool vibes to it. Um, yeah. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
Austin. Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I'd agree. Austin, that little Dripping Springs area in Texas, that was super super
Yeah.
awesome. A lot
Yeah.
of Texas charm to it, but great amenities too. Great schools and all that. And some of those schools, man, I felt like they were university campuses almost,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're so nice, almost like malls even.
Yeah. Yeah.
Super crazy to see that, because we're not used to that in California so much, so super awesome to see. Um, and
And
then
don't get me wrong, I think I
other,
love Nashville. Some of the areas we went to outside of Nashville too, great places, for
yeah,
sure. But yeah, I thought, yeah, Austin. Yeah.
yeah, Nashville's, particularly that lake home we saw. I remember thinking,
Yeah.
man, that was such a good deal. It was like 1.3 or 1.5 for a home on the lake, two boat slips,
Yeah.
beautiful, good square footage, all that. And
Yeah.
I remember thinking, man, if that weren't escrow, could we buy
Yeah.
us like a Airbnb or something like that? So really nice. And then, again, if you haven't gone on the trips with us, there's probably another one coming up soon. I know it's kind of early to talk about having just gone to Vegas, like, what was it, 2 weeks ago or so. But there's murmurs of the Carolinas potentially as
Yeah.
the next destination. And again, what we do there is really it's take a look at the real estate, explore, understand the lifestyle a little bit more firsthand, so that when we come back, we can talk to our clients about what it is, what life is like out there, and what the real estate is like, and if that's a real opportunity for people here in California to maybe think about. But also super team bonding. We had such a great time with everyone that went,
Right.
uh, and it was just a lot of fun, and probably conversations that we were able to have on that trip that we wouldn't normally have, here, just in the hustle and bustle of things.
Yeah.
And those car rides to different homes and whatnot. It was such a great experience. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. Let us know, let our staff know that you'd be interested in the next trip, and we'll as the details get more clear, we'll share those with you.
Yeah.
Um, so
Yes,
Matt,
I love it. Yeah.
NAR settlement, man, it's still on everyone's mind, I think, and
Yeah.
still, I know even yesterday we got texts about, like, hey, so what do we say here? With seller meetings, or listing appointments and buyer consultations, like, what is the right thing to say here? What is our take on it? What's the outlook? What's going to change? I think a
Yeah.
lot of that's still, not fully settled, still in working progress, right? So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. No, I mean, we've heard so many takes over the last, 2 weeks since this all really, or I guess maybe 3 weeks now. But so I feel like we're all a little bit maybe even exhausted on kind of hearing the same takes to an extent. But um, you know, I'm really in the camp that like I think we talked about this a little yesterday, but if things were set up the best for the consumer, like this is the one point out is if that was the best way for it to work, having buyer agents or buyers have agents as representatives, having sellers have their representative, and having it be financed through the price of the home, so that way the buyers don't have to come out with even more costs, because most of the costs are on the buyer side, right? Like the closing costs, they come in a cash wise, right? Are going to, a lot of those on the buyer side, other than commissions. And so to me, just if that's the best way, having it financed through the purchase price, then we'll be able to articulate that, and that will be what happens. Because I do believe in free markets, and I believe in markets being able to find the best solution for customers, right? So to me, I feel like nothing will change other than the fact that I think that you'll have to have there's going to be opportunistic people who try to think that this is a chance for disruption, and will come in and try to take advantage of the fears or the maybe just more of the resentments of people having to pay money for. People don't like paying anybody anything, right? Bank commercials a long time ago, I remember that bank commercial said, you can do this and this, and we don't charge you anything. And they're going, yeah, you should charge us anything. I'm thinking, well, it's a business, right? I mean, I get banks use our money, so I get that there's some other reasons there. But my point is, a lot of people resent paying anything, or some people do, right? And they don't see the value of things. And so I feel like those people are not gonna they're gonna try to figure out a way not to have to pay realtors if they think that's the angle here. But I just don't think that's the story. I don't think the story is that the 6% commissions are going away. We know that already went away. There's no one's getting 6% commissions, and that wasn't what this was about. This wasn't about the amount of the commission. That's what people are portraying it as. This is about buyers being able to negotiate with their agents that they're paying, and the sellers. It has nothing to do with the amount of the commissions, whether it's 4%, 6%, 10%. So I think that the real, story in my mind is this is just a more transparent way of doing what we've always been doing. And the people who already are transparent and are able to working as a trusted advisor, I think there's no change here. I really think it's not gonna be change for them. I do think there's gonna be people, like I said, people are gonna try to take advantage of this to play into those resentments of paying or those fears of, but that'll be short lived and it's gonna be kind of ugly maybe at moments. And we're gonna also see just, you know, discounted models try to come out to capture that buyer side, just like we saw discounted models on the seller side. But other than that, I think things are going to be pretty much business as usual for agents who are professionals and actually have clients who trust their guidance. That's my take on it, my general take. So, how about you? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Yeah, my thoughts are more about what I've been observing from agents and just conversations with
Mhm.
our agents and maybe agents outside of our brokerage. Um, there's really two camps here: people who feel really nervous about this and really threatened by this and really unsure, and then I see a whole other group really excited about this because they feel like our industry's been flooded with licensees. And people who maybe didn't have real intention to be professional real estate people,
Right,
but maybe had like an aunt or an uncle or a sister or brother that was going to buy, $2 million property. So they wanted to trap that commission. So they went and got their real estate license real quick, so they can get that commission and somehow benefit that way.
right,
And so I also personally feel pretty confident that our agents and the people in our brokerage, and again, all the agents out there that are true professionals, that they're going to see maybe even a windfall from this, right? And again, I think the like encouragement I want to give to the people that are feeling somewhat insecure here, or feeling like, man, this change is not good, is, hey, we're gonna have to adapt. And we maybe for a long time haven't needed to adapt because the market's been so great for us, right? It was more like inbound calls that were happening for a lot of us. You just wake up and you have a deal, right?
right,
But for those people that, hey, the encouragement is you're gonna have to adapt. And like we've all been saying, you're gonna have to understand what your real value is here for people on the buy side, especially, and like learn and practice articulating that so that you can move forward in your business and not feel stuck. And so
yeah,
I think that's been kind of the summation of it for me, for the most part. All the other stuff, like how's this going to shake out contractually? Who are the new players that are going to come in and try to benefit from this? Like it's still all up kind of in the air. We've talked about platforms really,
yeah,
like a homes.com that becoming maybe more prominent, and like lead generating sites like Zillow, maybe seeing a little bit of hit for this, and
right,
hopefully, again, they'll have to adapt as well. And so I think adaptation is kind of the big word for me with this, and then
yeah,
the how do you express and communicate your value and really back that up, right, is kind of the big thing.
yeah. No, and you mentioned homes.com, and that's one of the things we've talked about is organization of real estate. Who is going to organize real estate? If because we've heard some chatter right over the last few years of people, I think Redfin was going to leave NAR and some other people talking about leaving National Association of Realtors, and a lot of people were upset maybe with how NAR handled the lawsuits and that sort of thing. And regardless of that, when you think about just who's going to organize real estate, I think that agents that would say something like should think through, and I'm not saying that they haven't thought it through, but what I think it through is that if NAR has been able to organize real estate to benefit the individual agent, and I think that because let me walk through this a little bit. I'm going to add this up here. Market share in real estate is very small concentration versus like I saw healthcare, the top 10 companies are like 60 something percent of the market share. Google is like 90, what was it, 92, no, 93% of search market share.
It's crazy.
iPhone and what's that?
It's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy that it's that high. And
And if you want to buy a
there's
cell phone, you have kind of two choices, right? You either
yeah,
have Android operating system or iOS through Apple, right? You've got two, right? Uh, yeah, it's we don't have that kind of market share in real estate. So here's the top 20 brokerages in the country and the market share they have. And I based this on Real Trends sides that they do. And these are self-reported numbers that Real Trends verifies. So these are good numbers for these brokerages. And this is for 2023 that came out. And I'm assuming about 8 million sides because 4 million home sales, 8 million sides. So if you divide the sides here by 8 million sides, because buyer and seller side, you've got EXP leading the way at about 4.44% market share, and you can see the rest. The point is the top 10 have about 16%, right? And then it falls way off as a long tail because the top 20 only add another 2.77%. So the top 20 companies have about 19.5% market share. And the reason I'm saying this is because there's no way any company is going to be able to really make that much change in the market, right? Like then EXP with 4.44%, if they decided, hey, we're going to just have exclusive listings within just EXP, well, now you've got 95% of the brokerages turning their guns on you, right? You can't do that. There's nobody that can, Google decided to do something big in search. It'd be pretty hard for anybody to, stop that, right? In that sense, right? And same thing with iPhone. If iPhone decides to do something, you pretty much have a choice. Okay, do I just take an Android then? Because that's my only other option, right? So they have a lot of control in the marketplace, and we just don't have that in real estate. None of these companies have enough control. Compass is a huge company and done really well for their growth to 2.2% market share nationally. So you get the idea here. So the reason I bring this up is because the one thing that really does have some sort of ability to get us all to go in the same direction of change, not in price fixing or anti-competitive practices, but just in being able to work together and set a framework for us to be able to easily work and represent our clients well, is NAR, right? And the local and state boards. But no company is going to be able to. So the reason I bring that up is because for me, if companies were allowed to start trying to get market share, and there was really a benefit to having that market share to try to have competitive advantage by how big you are, then to me, that makes the agents more vulnerable to not being able to have their own businesses be as strong, and they'll get less of the commission share. The splits will go up for the brokerage side. Because if I'm a big brokerage and I say, hey, you want access, you got to go through me, right? Right now you pay NAR a few $100 a year. You're going to pay your broker maybe 10, 20, 30% more to have access. So my thoughts on that is just NAR has kept things very democratized for the average agent to really have as much access to everything as the biggest brokerage, right? The same tools, the same information, the same data, and that's what's allowed the individual agents' businesses to thrive and to be able to have real good entrepreneurs create a significant source of income for themselves. And I think if NAR wasn't there, that wouldn't be the case. You would be more like in the commercial world where you're making 50% of your commissions as an agent. Um, and potentially why Redfin was very happy to leave NAR. I mean, I'm just throwing that out there, but maybe they see it like, hey, NAR is a threat to us because we want to have employee agents where we only pay them a salary, and so we don't want to empower agents. We want to empower ourselves as corporations. So again, just that's a theory, but yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
no, I 100% agree. I think we've been facing this at the recruiting table when people have been sharing about the different options out there, the Compasses of the world, and what they've been told now the value proposition is from the bigger companies. But I think you hit it on the head. How could you have an exclusive network of listings that's substantial if you only have, say, 2% of the market in total, right?
Right.
And so I don't think that's a real value proposition yet. I know probably in the face of like fear right now and things changing and
Right.
maybe NAR being disbanded and whatnot, like that's probably going to hit some ears and maybe be effective. But I just don't think that's real. And then we're obviously not a top 20 brokers in the nation, right? And so for
Yeah.
us, the little guys, like I believe so much in what we're about, and I'm not sure. And we've talked about this a lot, right? At scale, like how do you do what we do, and keep things really pure in that sense, right? like our value on really good people, ethically and trustworthy people
Right.
to then become great agents. Like, how do we do that at scale and not like compromise that value, right? Because corporation, when you get, when you turn into a big corporation, especially when you go public, your motivations change and
Yeah.
naturally change, right? You're now, beholden to shareholders and news headlines, right?
Much more than
And
you are to your
always
agents and your customers. Right. Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so it is a wrestle. And we have a thesis. We think we can do it at scale, but it really doesn't involve empowering the right people to carry those same like vision and values and really champion that in their locale, right? And so,
Yeah.
so
Right. Because in the
yeah. So
locale, yeah. I was
no,
saying in
no,
the locale, agents do have market share, right? So you look at there's agents who have 20, 30% market share in their neighborhood that they farm, right? And so there are agents that have good market share. And I think that's exactly because of this, because it is such a local business. There's really two like proximities we talk about, right? Your social proximity, so your SOI, and then there's your community proximity, right? Like if you're a person that's really markets to your community, to a certain area. And even there, the market share is like if you've got a neighborhood of 500 homes and a 4%, let's say, turnover rate, that's 20 home sales a year. A good farmer is happy to get 4 or 5 of those homes, right? 20 to 25% is pretty good for them, right? And some of them have to expand to 1,000 homes to get more sales out of their farms. And I mean, maybe in some cases, I'm sure there's examples out there where someone might have 50% market share, but there's still not the same sort of market share even at that local level. And the reason I'm saying that is because um, those agents really what they need is to have support to kind of maintain that market share and the resources and just the people behind them, right? It's not going to be the brand is not going to help them get more market share, right? It's going to be just their brand, their relationships that helps them get more of that market share. And then what the brokerage can do is support that and help them and create a place where they feel good about where they come into the office every day and feel good about the people they work with and feel, I mean, that's really where I think the brokerage value. I don't think the brokerage value is ever going to be, hey, if you come here, you have access to more sales or more, that's a line, as a sales line, but that's not true. No one has that much market share as a brokerage anymore. And there were times when that was the case. I remember there were certain cities back 30 years ago where one brokerage really was like that small little office, and that neighborhood had like just a ton of market share. But that's not really the case much anymore, especially in bigger metro areas for sure.
yeah, the technology is different now from those days too, right? Like people can get information online, they can look up agents
Right.
online. It used to be if you wanted to go see a home, you either saw a for sale sign or, an agent went and pulled some listings out of the listing book to then present to you that these are for sale.
Yeah.
But everything's online. Our buyers are seeing homes for sale quicker than we are sometimes, right? Because they're refreshing, the platform or whatever the search is like by the 5 minute,
Yeah. Which
so
And speaking of which, that access to information like that's where I think the changes happen in sales, in manipulative sales, right? When people had all the information, they can wield that over you, and consumers were at the mercy of sales professionals. And I feel like that's because we were talking about this a lot, that who's going to survive kind of going forward with this new structure, people that are more trustworthy and more people that are actually able to be transparent, right? And so yeah, so I mean we were talking about scripts yesterday. And
yeah. I had a pretty strong reaction to scripts. And I know I'm not exemplar, and mine's like more of an allergic reaction, but I basically said something along the lines of forget scripts. Like
I forget, yeah, that was the word.
forget scripts.
Yeah,
And so I think my perspective on scripts and I think overall like manipulative sales is just a huge allergic reaction. I think and I know you've been that way as well, right? And so that's kind of where we connected. But um, I think probably scripts and certain methodologies worked really well, especially during the market we just had. where
Yeah.
business was so abundant. Again, I think I likened it to like when you go deep sea fishing and there's a school of mackerel, right? They're like in a frenzy. You just throw your line in, and sometimes you get 2, 3 mackerel, and you're just doing that all day, right?
Right.
Didn't take any skill, didn't take any much of anything. You have a pole and a line and some bait. You're getting fish. So, but that's kind of what it felt like. A script was like, the pole in some ways, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, so like, hi, did I catch you at the right time? Or like whatever the script is, and then you go through the different parts of the script and keep them on the phone. And I remember hearing something like the longer you keep them on the phone, the more likely they are to sell it, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, I mean,
um,
like you have things that are there's definitely. I mean, I'm a big believer in. I do believe that professionals do things the same way, and they know what gets results for them. So I think that there's definitely ways of answering questions or asking questions that do lead to better results by being more clear in the communication, right? Like if you're representing a listing, how to answer certain questions that are asked of you as a listing agent, how to present certain things. Presentation, communication, negotiation, those are all skills that you need to master. And so if you know how to present, you know how to communicate, you know how to negotiate, those are all skill sets. But when you have scripts that are meant to like manipulate or to sort of stretch the truth, I think that's where it gets a bad, and that's where I think script comes from. I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with, hey, I always ask this question. There's a question I always ask sellers first. That's great. Ask that question. You should have a question, you ask it. Just like a doctor always has questions they ask. I mean, we have to have a framework, but it's when you have these scripts. Like, I'll give you an example. I heard people training from Zillow leads where they call in and they say, oh, I thought I was calling the listing agent, right? And the way they trained this agent was to say, oh, I work with the listing agent, right? But they don't work with the listing agent. What they might be saying is that we cooperate as realtors through the MLS, but they don't work with the listing agent. And it's a deceitful tactic to kind of get that person to go, oh, okay, you work with the agent. So they still think they have some sort of in, because that person's usually calling Zillow because they want to get in with the listing agent, right? And that was probably the number one quote objection Zillow people have to have, is because the people are calling for the listing agent and they have to figure out, how do I get them to talk to me over the listing agent? And it's fine if you say to them, no, I'm not the listing agent, but hey, there's some benefits to talking to me and here's what they are. That's great. But if you say, hey, I work with the listing agent, that's a little bit manipulative and not the truth, right? If you say, Zillow doesn't want us, the other one I hear is Zillow doesn't want you working with the listing agent directly. They want you to work with me. Um, that's another one I heard, right? And that's not, Zillow doesn't, I don't think Zillow is saying that. So the point is, and I think what they mean maybe is, in theory, that Zillow is hoping that buyers convert leads, right? So there is some truth to that Zillow does want that to convert, but it just seems to me like manipulative and not complete. It's not a full truth. And I feel like that was what hurts sort of the transparency um, uh, reputation of real estate agents. And that's why these buyer commission lawsuits, where they're saying like agents telling people, hey, I work for free. Costs no more money to work for me as an agent because I work for free. And it's like, well, there's a 2.5%, 3% commission I'm getting that's coming into the price of the home somehow. So it's also not very honest and truthful. Um, so anyway, so that's my thought on scripts. It's like, I have a problem with them when they're built to manipulate or built to hide the truth or to stretch the truth and that sort of thing. I think that's where I'm happy about this lawsuit, that maybe some of those business models that encourage those type of scripts might have to either become more honest or go away completely, which is to me a win. If I should say, if I can be so bold.
yeah, I'll say, just like you're saying, I think you got to work on your craft. You got to work on the delivery and the communication of your value, right?
Right.
And being able to articulate that really well, and then also like actively listen to someone versus like run them through a script, because you need to get to this point because you were trained that, hey, if you get them to this point and they've been on the phone for like 5 minutes, you have a very high like chance of conversion. So you're just trying to do everything to keep them on the phone. First, like listen to what they're saying and what maybe their need is and whatnot. And you're absolutely right. Like in every conversation with the buyer seller, there's motivations to kind of uncover, right? There's like questions you need to ask to understand what they're looking for. So by all means, if you have a processed way of talking to people, that's not what we're talking about. But I think where I'm especially allergic is like those people who offer these scripts of like real estate training that share a promise of like, if you do the script and you call the phone book, you're going to get X amount of deals, right? So sign up for my program at like 900 bucks
Right.
a month. I just feel like, man, there's so much more than that, right? And it's given us, in some ways, like a bad name as realtors. If customers were to sit in on some of those trainings, right, how would they feel about how that training went, right? And then
Right.
how they're almost like objectified, right, or commoditized, right? It's dollars and cents to kind of win over. Like, I just it's odd, and I think that's true of like our social media too, right? I, I'm on social media, as more of a viewer than a content creator,
Right.
but I sometimes like cringe at some of the agent posts out there because they're so like like we can all laugh at certain things, right?
Yeah.
And we probably talk that talk, but if a potential client of yours is listening or seeing some of these posts, like like would they think more highly of you or
Right.
less of you, right? If you were to share on your social media how you just went through this great training about how to you know like own your client, right? Like and get them to do what you want them to do. Like, do you think your clients are feeling pretty good about working with you, or they're seeing that as like a red flag? Like, oh,
Right.
I didn't know so and so looked at me that way, right? Or like, oh, that conversation we had this week was about that, right? It's so weird. But I think it's easy, if you take it from that lens and just take a step back and say, hey, let's take my agent hat off here. And, again, desire to like make money and do well. Like, and let me just put on like, if I were a client, like, how would I want to be talked to? Like, what's the feeling I want to get from the
Right.
person I want to work
Right.
with? Like, those type of, again, just very basic commonsensical things. Like, I think sometimes we've thrown out the window
Yeah.
on hopes that, hey, if we do this or that, like it's going to earn us business, or we want to feel prominent, right? We want to seem like we're an expert, so we want to say all these things that may or may not be true of us. Like, yeah. And so I think, again, my overall encouragement there is like, yeah, let's just put all that aside. Not that we don't need training, and not that we don't need to hone our craft, but let's put all this aside and really think through, like, what does it mean to be trusted by a client to then help them with real estate, right? And what am I going to need to develop within myself to be able to fulfill that promise and fulfill that, like, or make good by that trust, and kind of work from there versus, hey, I want to make this amount of money. How many phone calls did I got to rip through?
Right.
What's the script that's going to be most effective for that? And just like doing the work, right?
Yeah. Well, I saw an
So,
Instagram ad that was join our team. I'll make you a millionaire. Right. Didn't say how, just I'll make you a millionaire. And I'm thinking, you know, hey, like that sounds pretty good for some of our agents. Maybe we should send them over there, like, right. But the thing is that
totally.
we're so in the real estate world, and it's more dangerous for newer agents because see when you meet with a lot of clients and you're in the real world because you actually have customers, you see more of the real life and you're more grounded because you actually have to have real conversations with customers. So the danger in newer agents is most of what they're being fed is just all those sales and gimmicks and make you a millionaire, make you, 90 days to 100 listings, and it's like there's not one person that I know that has 100 listings right now anywhere in our vicinity, right? Like I'm sure maybe in some small areas of the country where there's not as many competition and maybe one agent might have 100 listings at once, but it's just not the truth. But then why would you name your training program 90 days to 100 listings, right? There's no it's just built on premise, right? So we've talked about that before. The point is, it's like for newer agents, there's so much more at risk because they don't get to have real conversations, as real life with real customers, and seeing that we're not, it's that there's actually real people who have thoughts that might challenge some of the things you say, and you have to figure out like, oh, is what I'm saying truthful? Because if it's truthful, you don't have to worry about people challenging because the truth's on your side. But when you're using a sales line or a script or a gimmick and they challenge you, then you're kind of stuck. And so I just feel like that's, to any new agent out there right now, is if you're being trained by a real salesy type person that's got a lot of gimmicks and things like that, unless that's really who you are in your DNA, that you love that, I'd run far away from it. I'd run far away from that because it's not going to help you in a career. You need to find agents who are actually selling homes, who know what it's like to sit with customers in hard times and talk hard conversations and learn from that person just by being around them, right? And catching it almost from them, right? Versus being trained on these, scripts, so, but
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why I just fear
It's
for our industry. And basically on that, maybe we can segue to the new norm, right? Because there's a good chance, right, that we talked about, like, what if 6% interest and 4 million homes a year selling is a norm for a while, right? Because there are a lot of people out there, I mean, even CEOs of big companies we've talked about today, who are just hoping and praying that 5% interest rates come back soon. They're on the news saying this. When 5% comes back, and and this is a CEO of $1 billion company, that his strategy is just waiting for 5% interest to come back. um, and it's like, just hold on, don't sell off our shares until 5% interest rates come back. Um,
yeah.
and anyhow, but that might not happen anytime soon.
Yeah, or what about, let's just assume it won't happen, right? Because I think people have been in that mode for like the last 2 years or so, hoping that it happens. And let's assume right now that, hey, we're in this for longer than we hope to be in it. What do we need to do right now, right? I think this is applicable not just of like agents, right, and what they need to do in their businesses, but also brokerages, right? Like, we were in a spot, let's say months ago, not more months ago, almost from the start of Circa,
Right.
where we needed to go through that and adapt pretty quickly, even before there was rain, so to speak, right? That we needed to adjust, and so I think a key component of some of our success, and then maybe some of the agent success, is that they did adjust and they did work harder. They didn't just sit and wait for hopefully these interest rates to go down. They didn't just listen to things that appease them. They did what they can here and now today, to really work on their businesses. And so I think that's the case right now as well. Again, interest rates are back up to 7, I think, ish. And there was some negative news on inflation data or CPI data, and
Yeah.
maybe now predictions that interest rate cuts won't happen as quickly as we had all thought. The market's reacting to it, and so what can we do right now versus saying, hey, let's just sit out the next few months and see how this goes. What can we do right now? And I think that's the mentality that wins. That, again, that adaptability, even now, is what's going to win. So
Yeah.
so yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, no, what I was thinking also is that there's a new norm now with this NAR settlement, you know,
Right.
and maybe in a lot of minds the fear has been, what's the worst case scenario here? Well, let's assume that worst case scenario and let's adapt to that. So what are the ways that you can avoid being like victim to the worst case scenario? What could you do right now to do that? And so I think that's again another encouragement I give to people. That's the winning formula. They'll just like hug the tree and hope the hurricane stops, right? I think
Yeah.
we had that in our training once. But you got to move, you got to adapt. So
Yeah.
what that adaptation means for everyone is going to be a little different, but I can almost guarantee you what it means is, strengthen your relationships, right? Work on those, and being a very good, trustworthy person,
Yeah.
and always being good with that, right? And living by that.
Yeah. There's
But I
there's
also
one.
do
Yeah.
think it's honing your skill, right?
Yeah.
You got to hone your skill.
Right.
You got to get good at what you're talking about,
Yeah. There's
and,
there's
and
one.
and really live that out.
Yeah. Sorry. There's one quote that my daughters can complete for me, and it's I'll say to them, "Don't wish it was easier," and they'll say, "Wish you were better." Right. And because things are hard, and this market's hard, the industry's hard. 87% failure rate in real estate. First of all, good markets, bad markets, 87% average failure rate. And then you talk about the fact that you're dealing with high emotions, high stakes, high pressure on you to find the next business deal, right? There's so much pressure in this business on us. And so if you can't focus on always getting better versus wishing things are easier, like if you're in the wishing things are easier camp, you're not going to ever do that well in this business. Even if you can do well in a good market because things are easier, it's going to get harder, and there's going to be hard deals too, and you're not going to try. So I think it's just, I always want to stay in the wish you were better camp, always, and like, and maybe the word wish is a little bit weak. Maybe it should be like get better, but you know what I mean? But the point is, a lot of people do spend a lot of time wishing it was easier. And I think it's just, no, we got to get better. And I think that is the idea of, again, scripts are to try to make it easy. It's an easy button. How do I, I'll make you a millionaire. Good. That's an easy button. It's like, no, you're going to make yourself a millionaire in life. No one's ever been made a millionaire by somebody else, right? I mean, you can be shown some things, but you're going to have to make yourself a millionaire, so no one's ever going to make you anything. And so anyway, I just think that's where I think we have to be. And I think just having that sort of mentality in this type of market is even more important, right?
Yeah. And if right now in this market, you can find success, just imagine what it's going to be like if those interest rates do drop, right? The
Right.
market starts to get back to 8 million transactions a year, right? How much more success will you see then, right?
Right.
But there is success to find here and now. And so, unfortunately, again, if you're just one of those people that's just going to sit and wish and wait, probably there's too much headwind to survive in this type of market, right? And some people call it quits, right? So I think those who survive this and those who thrive in this and find ways to succeed, man, they're going to set a new norm for
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
And
Compelling vision of the future is everything,
yeah,
right? Like Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, like people who had a compelling vision of the future are the people who survive the worst conditions, right? Something that they feel is, and I think some people that are career driven real estate, hey, I'm committed to this career. This is who I am. I'm a realtor. That's a compelling vision. Just that's who you are. I don't leave. I stay here. This is my career. I don't like leave when it gets hard, right? And then the people who are like, hey, I'm not yet. I haven't been here that long, but I see myself staying here that long, or I see myself. And because I do think, if you, like you were just saying, this is where you make your millions. You don't make them now, but you build it now to make them in the future when things get better, right? So meaning you work hard, you get market share, and in those two circles, you get market share and brand equity in your sphere and in your communities, and then that just builds and builds, and you work hard to be successful now. And then when the market does get easier, you will reap the rewards there. But I think it's, again, you just always have to continue, to work hard.
yeah, I think we share from our own experience within our brokerage. Like we see some people having the career years, and it's not something we're throwing out there. I can list off names of people that are having the best years ever.
Yeah, and they're continuing this year. They're still continuing this year.
They're continuing this year.
Yeah.
But I think when we broke down how are they doing that, right? I think there's a couple things, right? The people that are buying right now are those millennial first-time home buyers, right? They're still buying right now, believe it or not, in our neighborhoods, right?
Right, for sure.
And then there's the people that have to sell or buy, right? And I know that's kind of like been a common theme for the last 2 years. But people who are really doing well right now are capitalizing on those two groups. Yeah, absolutely. And then I see some winning kind of ingredients in those people too. One, of course, they work hard, right? Work so hard sometimes that they put their health at risk. And we just heard of one of our agents that had an issue like that yesterday. But he's working extremely hard, right? And then they're high relational type people, right? And they foster trust in a very real way, in a very organic way. Again, not manipulation or anything like that, but they're people that just exude trustworthiness and hard work for their clients. And I think those two ingredients are probably the most common ingredients with people that we see are doing really well right now. And then if I were to go like one level further, there are people that have said, hey, this is going to be my niche. And I'm going deep in this niche, whether that's like a neighborhood or a farm or, hey, trust sales, or I'm a probate person, or I'm a divorce type person. And they're going really deep into that. that's what we're seeing there too. Or again, it's like geography. It's like, hey, I want to be the dominant person here in this neighborhood of like
Right.
1,000 homes, I'm willing to spend the efforts, the money, the time to build that there, so that is my domain, and
Yeah.
we see that working.
Yeah. And bottom line, and if you are going deep in those areas, like you are going uh, uh, into neighborhoods, you do really have to invest in that time in there and building those relationships, right? It can't be just sending some EDDMs or some flyers. It has to be like you're in there, you're talking to people, you're getting yelled at sometimes.
Yeah,
You gotta-
and I'll say you're being generous. Like you're being generous, right? You're not putting on like this little rinky dink, like I don't know, neighborhood gathering thing, right? But you're being generous. You're paying
right,
for. Again, I heard this, and this was such a great idea. It's like a shredding truck, so that all
right.
the neighbors could like shred stuff like they're on the spot and it's completely free for them, right?
Yeah,
um, or like a really nice Easter event that just happened,
yeah,
recently. So I heard those things. I'm like, man, you're still like in times where again maybe funds are a little tight, you're giving to your communities. The other place that's kind of like a little off topic of this that I'm seeing a lot of like people win at is referral deals from out of state, because there are people still
right.
moving into California or wanting to sell a property here in order to buy something elsewhere. And so I've talked to now like 4 or 5 agents in the last 2 weeks who said, man, like the last 5 deals I've gotten are from out of state people or agents
Yeah,
that referred me a deal here. And I knew them through some like neighbor that moved over there at some point and mentioned my name or just some referral network. But I think you can work on that and reach out to people. I got my first few texts from people outside of the state saying, hey, we're over here in Tennessee, in Franklin. If you have any people that are looking to move here, like let's work together on that, right?
yeah, yeah.
And so
Look at
I
those
think
cities
that's
that are moving here. Look at this, the cities, and find some. Ask your title rep to pull up the best, like top 100 listing agents in New York, top 100 listing agents in certain areas, and reach out to those agents. Say, hey, if you've got people coming to California, I'm your guy. I'm your gal.
100%,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah. If I could sum up anything, with looking at all of this, is like what you want to just be as a person who's out there working hard in this industry to bring value. And if you work hard, you know, that's why we like to go to these cities. We don't just like to hear about them, read about them in magazine. We'll go to them. We'll go and look at them. That's showing you're working hard at your craft. You know, making sure that you're doing your best to grow your market share, because it's not going to be a company that gives it to you. You're going to have to grow your market share. You want a company that supports that, you growing that market share. Don't use manipulative sales tactics. I don't know why I'm summarizing the points, but I think they all kind of work together a little bit here. And because the new norm is going to be hard work's going to prevail through a market like this, and that hope is not a strategy, as we've heard before. It's about like dealing with the hand you're dealt right now, and getting out there. And again, those two groups: millennial buyers, people that have to sell, meaning they're either they're retiring, passing away, unfortunately, moving out of state because they can't, they want to retire where they have a little more spending power. Those are the people that are selling houses right now, for the most part. And there's some other peripheral people, but that's the majority that I've seen, at least. We've been seeing as people that kind of have to sell. But yeah, so capitalize on those. But thanks for everybody hanging in there with us. And also, if you have other topics you want us to talk about, let us know, because we're always looking for things to talk about and want to bring value, and just give our takes as brokers and what we're seeing. And because as brokers, we have to be local and think at the agent level. But we also have to think at the industry level and beyond. So I think it's nice to share our perspectives on things, but we want to make sure we're relevant to what you guys want to hear. So let us know, and we're happy to talk about
yeah.
it.
I'm gonna throw this out there too, Matt. I know we haven't really announced this at all. I know we've talked about it, but we do great trainings at Circa, which has always been part of what we do on a monthly, basis, and we do some really big trainings too, that we do once a quarter or so. But if you're at all interested in coaching, if you're a producing agent that wants to kind of get to the next level, Matt and I have been talking about doing a lot more coaching. Rather than like trainings so much as well, right? And pair the two together. And so if you're interested in that at all, and you wouldn't mind doing like in a group, I think that's something we really want to try to do. And I could already think of some groups to put together, like new agents, that are just starting out, but also, producers who want to get to the next level of production, or even like top producers who are like running with their heads cut off and they want to like improve, what they're doing. So at all, like anywhere in that range, if you wanted to like explore some coaching, we'd love to talk to you about that. So I just throw that out there for everyone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, everybody have a great weekend. And Abe, good talking to you. And
Good talking to you. See you soon.
see you guys.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend.